not mucking around, get straight into it.
Yep.
So we're looking at what are we, 5-6 days out from the first game of round 1 of season 2015. We've given up on the mystery AFL Theatre 2.014K because they take too bloody long to record.
That, and to be fair, we're just looking at a bit of practice for when the season starts.
Exactly.
Get used to this whole format of podcasting and actually having something that's worth listening to.
Yeah, we finally figured out which cords go in which plugs and how to turn it on and off.
We've actually got a couple of interviews lined up that'll be particularly interesting to some people as well.
We'll announce them later.
We'll wait until they're in
the
bag first.
In the bag, yeah, exactly right.
But the Clicking Balls team have put a few tendrils out into the AFL community, and
we've got a lot out there.
And seeing what comes back.
So if you know anybody that's half interesting, let us know.
Make suggestions.
We're not fussy.
Even if they lie and say they play AFL, we're fine with that. We'll play along.
We're doing it.
We're not shy about approaching people either.
No. So we thought we'd go through just the whole predictions for this year, and I don't know how we're going to hold ourselves to them, but we'll see what we think is coming up for 2015.
It's all right. The internet doesn't remember shit. Before we line up for a couple of games in round 1. So, easiest place to start, I think, the top 4. So, Brenton, who you got as your top 4 for 2015? Well, I had a bit of a think about it, and I came up with the same boring answers as probably everybody.
Everyone?
Yeah. I had Hawks, Port, Freo, and Sydney. And
Freo's the interesting one.
It was, because I actually, if anyone was actually listening, at the start of our MA2K, we actually had to designate a ladder that we anticipated people would finish.
Yep.
And so I felt obliged to stick to that. However, I was going to do a little audible and take Freo out for Geelong, because I thought they've been all right.
Yeah.
I think they're managing their list pretty well. So
I've made a lot of audibles on that original 18
that
I put in. So I think, who have you got, Josh? You got...
I think Hawthorn, Port, everyone's going to have those two in.
Yeah. And Sydney. I think everyone's got Sydney in.
No, I've dropped Sydney out.
You've dropped Sydney out.
I think Sydney's going to struggle this year. The other two I had were North and Richmond, just because I think North showed last season they can beat the top teams. They just need to get consistency.
Yep.
And I think Richmond they're going to like the little bit of finals action they had, and I reckon they'll go a little deeper this year.
And I mean, North have strengthened their list in regards to going deeper into September, or having a fair crack.
I don't think they've lost that much in the off season, and they've added
just Greenwood, but they've added
Greenwood, of course they did, but they've added Waite, Higgins.
Higgins and Waite had a pretty good nab,
and
also Ben Brown has come along nice well, and Kane Turner too.
Yep, that's right.
What was that? Oh, you bloody phone's on the thing.
No, not mine.
Well, I got Port Hawks and Sydney and Geelong as well. I actually had Geelong dropping out.
Yep.
I can't remember who I put in there, but after I saw the NAB and I thought, well, Mitch Clark's actually playing really well.
Yeah.
I reckon they look all right. But, Richmond's a funny one then. You put in Richmond are going to jump from 8th up to 4th.
I think at their best, they're a top 4 side. If they can get closer to their best a little bit more often, they'll be brilliant.
NAB Cup's hard to judge on, but they did look all right. And that North versus Richmond game was a decent NAB Cup game. It's probably one of the better pre-season games I've watched.
It was a very clean game for very early in the season. There was a lot of nice high percentage disposal, and not a lot of the clangers you see so often at the start of the season.
And I think both teams ran out with not a full strength side, but close.
It was like a feeling out a match. It was, there was some intent behind it. But I think just looking, I mean, it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to tell much from the NAB challenge. But just looking physically at the Tigers squad, they looked like they'd trimmed down a little bit. Martin looked a bit more slimmer. And I think there might be a conscious effort to play their running and attacking style of football into the deeper part of the season.
If they do, I think they'll do really well. Their ability to run and control the ball when they're in flight and running in packs is brilliant.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. I don't know if it was a NAB challenge only thing, but Jack Rewalt playing out of the middle for most of the game rather than the goal square.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I know they experimented a little bit. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before, when it was just a bit too one-dimensional up forward. We didn't really have enough people to give options, and you get frustrated. So then they just put him on the wing or up forward, and actually played really well. And the thing is, we were watching those games at the MCG, and you'd actually see the effort that he would put in when he hasn't got the ball and not getting the ball.
He gets a rough trot with some of the media sometimes.
Yeah, but I find when he's up the ground a bit, he's compelled to put in effort, and you notice the effort a lot more.
Yeah. Imagine Richo watching that going,
it's his whole life.
Yeah. Exactly what happened to him. He'd get shit delivery, he'd be running backwards and forwards around the 50-metre arc, and they put him on the wing, and all of a sudden he's fucking fine.
Everyone talks about, Nick Rewalt's work rate. Richo was the same, if not better.
Yeah.
It just didn't get seen as much.
Exactly right.
And
Nick
Riewoldt.
Yeah.
With Nick, he doesn't get the shits when they don't
Yeah.
kick him the ball.
Yeah.
He's going like Richo did.
I think
Just want to take a photo of his knob.
Yeah, I think Riewoldt sort of figured out a while ago that he may have to go get his own ball every now and then.
He's not scared, kicking out from fullback, leading out from the goal square.
Yeah, Richard had plenty of ones coming in the 50, but they're always just getting bombed in by someone who wasn't even looking where they were going.
Now, Freo. You put Freo... They finished top 4 this year.
Last year, yeah.
Last year, sorry, 2014. Finished 4th. And you reckon they'll stick?
Well, I did.
You did.
Still not really sure about it now.
You want to change it now?
I reckon they're going to struggle.
I just feel bad about changing it. But nah, fuck it, all right.
We never got there, so...
Yeah.
Because I did.
I don't think Freo are going to get there, to be honest.
They haven't changed their list at all.
Yeah.
Sylvia still hasn't come through.
Yeah.
Colin Sylvia. And Crowley's in big trouble.
And I think with that list, it doesn't give you a whole lot of options to sort of revolutionise a game plan for a match. Like, they've got that one style that they play, and they've recruited to play that style.
Is that the list, or is that the coach?
Well, it's got to be the coach in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because he sets what they're going to be looking for in their list.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
buck stops with him.
And I mean, he's obviously got to start from somewhere, and he has to play with the cards he's dealt at the beginning. But you still have a plan when you're going for these jobs. You look at the squad, and that's the plan you take into the meeting to try and get the gig.
Well, he's been there for 4 or 5 years now, and they stayed away from trade week.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they didn't stay away, but they didn't do anything.
Yeah, they weren't terribly active.
And not even trading picks to try and move up the order or anything like that. And they've got to be careful with their picks. So they like to pick Western Australians so that they
Don't keep going home.
Don't keep going home, exactly. But I mean, they've got a lot of recycled players in there already.
Yeah,
Sylvia's one, Pearce, Dawson. I guess you can say McFarlane, but
and I mean, the Waffle is a legit, junior league, and there are lots of talent that runs around in there. I mean, just the mature age players you get from there,
and they get a good look at them.
Very handy, yeah,
more than anyone else. But they're another year older. Their improvement from last year might be in just getting players on the track more often.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't put money on it. I think they're going to go backwards.
Yeah,
I've got them missing the top 4 as well. But I think they've probably still got enough class and systems to make the 8, but not the 4.
And I mean, just the fact that they do have a lot of skills, and their home ground advantage is a real advantage as well. You've got to pencil in a few just based on that.
But conversely, though, it works against them sometimes because they'll have games in Melbourne where Sandiland stays home.
Yeah, true,
and stuff like that. Like they've lost to Saints the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and that. The other interesting one I thought there was Sydney. You reckon Sydney won't make the 4?
No, I can't see them being consistent all season.
And I might agree with that as well. I think one problem they may have is just cohesion with that group. It's hard to get them all on the track at the same time for an extended period of time and really see how your game plan's going to play out.
Tippett's never had a full season with them. This is his 3rd year at Sydney, and I think he had suspension for half a year in his first year, and last year he was missing for half the year with injury, and then he had a shocker in the grand final, but he wasn't Robinson Crusoe there. I think they could go either way, Sydney. They could get minor premiers again, or they could struggle to make the 8. Their back line is going to be the issue.
Well, yeah, they're very heavily stacked forward, and they've got an all-star forward line that any team would love to have.
Yeah.
But the half-backs and the full-back line, I just don't see an All-Australian there. I don't see how they're going to be able to play the rebound footy that a lot of successful teams have been.
Well, their best rebounder was always Malcheski, and he's not there.
Yeah.
He's, you can say he's part of the high-paying forward lines, just doesn't leave much room for anybody else, and he's taken the big money and gone to the Gold Coast, and good on him,
Yeah,
I think it's a brilliant move for him because the Gold Coast needs someone in the back line.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, then the Gold Coast are looking pretty good, and I think with Sydney is they're also getting a bit old in the legs as well, which it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just means you have to recruit a lot smarter. And I think the prime example of that is Hawthorn, who've got some older players, but the way they've recruited to fill holes and just smart recruitments as well. Ones that didn't cost a heap of cash, ones that might get 2 or 3 years out of them, but they're doing their part to keep this success going.
Well, that's where a premiership team comes from more often than not, is that how you recruit the recycled players.
Yeah.
And you look at, out of last season, you say probably Adelaide did it best, or the last couple of seasons, with Betts and Podsiadly. Those are 2 players who had a brilliant 2014.
Better than I thought they would have. You kind of forgot how good Betts was. And Posiadly, you thought, wow, Walker's coming back from a knee. He'll fill in a little bit there. But he played really well. He more than earned his paycheck.
He did.
Put a bit of discipline amongst the troops as well.
Yeah,
I think that's what they needed too.
Yeah, just to make sure you hold your structure when you're playing, you don't get sucked into positions that you shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
And just having a bit more perspective on the match overall.
Okay, so we got top fours there. Ooh, go back. The other one was Geelong. I thought they might slide down a bit. I mean, they went out in straight sets last year, but they're still Geelong.
Yeah, they're still always thereabouts.
Yeah. And they haven't... I mean, they've started to move on a few players that are around the middle, like Taylor Hunt and Travis Varco.
Yeah.
Picked up Mitch Clark, obviously, and...
was that Nilo Cockatoo?
Cockatoo, yeah.
He is going to be something special.
Mackay,
yeah.
And we're number 5 at Geelong
really?
as well.
Wow.
Yeah. I hope they don't expect too much from him this year, because it is his first year, although I think he's... I don't think he's 17 or 18. I think he's a little bit older.
Yep.
Look, he's going to have 12 or 14 really good games.
He's going to have a hell of a highlight reel. I don't know if he's going to be consistent through all the season, but he is going to look brilliant in spots.
And if Motlot's fit without injury, they could, they could be like the Geelong of old.
Yeah, I don't much care for Motlop.
Yeah, well, yeah, I wonder why. The thing is, Geelong tend to be pretty good at handling their young talent as well, in regards to expectations and how they blood them into the game.
Yeah, it's been a great system for a long time.
Still waiting. They've had a few, little talent. I know Billy Smets had a couple of games which he showed a bit of promise, and just still don't know if he's not in an environment where he can become that key player, or whether he's sort of mellowed out.
Well, I mean,
played out his talent.
They've been able to do that because guys like Jimmy Bartell is taking a step back. He's sort of playing that quarterback role across the half back and pinch hitting forward and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean his breakout season was a huge step forward too. It was he was one of those guys that was managed well and came out of nowhere and picked up a Brownlow. Didn't even take a date to the Brownlow. I don't think.
Hasn't had trouble since then.
Yep.
Okay, so out of the top 4, obviously we believe the Premier's going to come out of those 4.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to think of a dark horse to come out of the bottom 4. But
who's your Premiership favourite and who's the dark horse then?
Well, my favourite is the Hawks. It's pretty tough to go past how they've been playing, you know what I mean? And you got to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to continue that form into this season. Not much has changed. It seems to have just strengthened. And the dark horse. Dark horse.
A question without notice. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Who you got?
I've got Port. I reckon if they had a better first quarter in the elimination final, they would have been premiers. And you can throw as many ifs as you like, but I thought, had the better of Hawthorn for most of that game. They just didn't put it on the scoreboard, which is Hawthorn's defensive pressure as well. But I think the way Port played that elimination final was premiership quality, except for their finishing.
Yeah.
And they sort of came out of the blocks in the first quarter and then went to sleep for 2 quarters and then came home with a wet sail. But, not enough.
And they probably still could have done it in the last quarter, but, they didn't. And Hawthorn got the chocolates.
I picked the Hawks as well, just because 2 in a row, and they haven't lost any of their best 22 from last year. And a matter of fact, they've added to it. You'd expect that, like, they're I think the second oldest list in the league. So there's got to be atrophy at some stage.
Yeah.
But they had to be last year too. And it just didn't happen. And they had one of the horrible injury runs.
Yep.
And it didn't matter. And now they've added Frawley, O'Rourke, and Jed Anderson's back.
Yeah.
And he was tearing it up during the NAB Cup.
And I think for Hawks to lose the flag this year, it's gonna take a team with a game plan that's specifically designed to beat Hawthorn. And they're going to be good enough to beat the other teams along the way.
But I mean, that's what all those teams in that top 6 should be looking at. All right, if we're going to win, we've got to beat Hawthorn.
And it's just been that way with the dynasties of the last 10, 20 years. Yeah. When you look at Brisbane, and even Essendon had a good season there, played a different style of footy, and Hawthorn obviously, and Geelong obviously had theirs. And it's always been that one sort of, not revolutionary, but an evolution of a style to play AFL, and then you have to have that counter evolution in defence.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be the chance for someone to beat them. And this is my dark horse. If anyone does it this year, I think it'll be Gold Coast.
Really?
I think they'll be able to have the talent and the sort of the leadership to implement a game plan that could beat Hawthorn. I don't think they will,
Yeah.
but I think if it happens, and that's where it'll come from, a team like that.
Gold Coast is an interesting one because Gary's had 6 months off.
Yep.
You got Malcheski down the back leading the troops. You got May next to him, who was, I don't know if he was in the All-Australian squad last year, but if he wasn't, he was just outside it.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the premier key backman for the next 10 years.
I'll tell you, if Gold Coast don't make finals, they'll have had a poor season.
Yeah. New coach as well in Rodney Eade, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
I thought McKenna was a bit unlucky there, but
Yeah, so do I.
So do I. Look, I think he had one more season to prove himself, in my opinion. Obviously not shared by people at Gold Coast HQ.
But that's the way it goes.
There's two types of coaches, those that are going to be sacked and those that have been.
Yeah, and the thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a plan that they had organised from a long way out, and the time's come and they've implemented it, regardless of what the results were. This was their plan and they're sticking with it.
Yeah, and all those gun midfielders that they've drafted over the years, now's the time. Like, they can't muck around anymore.
And that's why I think Gary Ablett being out for half of last season might have been a good thing going into this season. Give those players that little bit of exposure to not have to rely on him and just see how they fit into a game plan without Gary Ablett.
But while he's out too, he's still turning up to games and everything. So you're still getting Gary Ablett's input. So, if you're one of the midfielders and Gary Ablett pulls you aside and says, mate, try running a bit more to the wide.
Mate, I have a pile of sauce.
You throw in your jumper and go get it. But having him in the club is worth another 2 years of development for their midfield.
Yeah.
I think it's last year of his contract this year too. So
you'd have to think he's not going anywhere.
I can't see him going back home to Geelong. I reckon he'll stay there.
I think he's pretty stoked up there, to be honest. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Likes the beaches.
Yeah.
Port are the other, I think with the bookies, they're the next favourites. But it does feel like they've been running on emotion the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's got to stop at some stage, and the skill and the talent's got to take over. But, I mean, they haven't landed yet, so...
It seems to me that they've just sort of cemented that they're really in the mix for second or third best team. Yeah. I think they've never proven they've got that consistent ability to topple Hawthorn or something like that. Like, on any given day, they can do it. But I think when you look at a consistent style of football they're going to play, I don't think it's at that level yet. But, like you said, they haven't landed yet.
What'll hurt... The thing that'll hurt them the most is their ability to run the ball quickly is brilliant, but in the wet weather, it's going to struggle. So if it's dewy, if it's chilly, their game falls apart. That is what's going to be a big question mark on them, how they play in the wet. But other than that, their ability to transition is second to none.
Yeah, it's demoralising to the opposition.
Yeah, and they can beat any team.
Yeah,
if they put it all together, but I don't think they'll catch people by surprise this year either.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but I think they'd be setting themselves up for a grand final. That'll be their par. They won't be happy with a prelim.
Yeah,
last year it got the feeling that they were happy to make the prelim, and then they got 3 points away, and then all of a sudden they weren't happy anymore, which is good because it means they want more.
Yeah, and the thing is also, if you thought the English media were bad on the English cricket team, you wait until the South Australian football team does bad.
Oh yeah.
And how can you finish third or fourth, whatever, and still be considered bad? Like I thought, the only reason that you'd come down on Port is because they should have won that game.
Yeah, I mean, they should have won it with. I disagree with that they dominated the majority of the game, though. I think they dominated for 15 minutes of the last quarter and 20 minutes of the first quarter, and then for the rest of it, the Hawks dictated it. And even the final quarter comeback, there was Ruffy had a snap-on goal, and it looked like the Hawks had put the cue in the rack. And then it's a testament to Port that late in the game they could turn it on that quickly. But it's history and all happens. But now they've got to start from scratch again. And I think Ken Hinckley signed on again, so they're pretty stable off field. They've got a new stadium deal, so that side's up. So they're all working up to it. This is their big year to make a go at it.
I guess it depends how they approach it, which you find out the first time they play Hawthorn, whether they're going to be like...
It's Anzac Day.
Yeah, anytime Hawthorn get close to them, they'll be like, oh no, not again. Or they're going to be like, nah, not fucking having it. And they run over the top of them.
It's almost like they're too young to be scared. Like,
not true. Yeah.
If they were older and more experienced, they'd be worried. But they're not. They seem like they've got that youthful arrogance.
It's kind of like their premiership team from 07 or whatever it was. What year was it? 04.
04.
Yeah.
They just need a Byron Pickett.
07, they were 116 points short.
Oh, that's right. That was a great grand final where you stopped watching at half time and just got pissed with your mates.
Okay, so there's premiers. So the other end, who's getting the spoon this year? Is it a consensus?
I've got Melbourne.
Melbourne?
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
I didn't have Melbourne. I thought Melbourne might do moderately better than in past seasons. I've got
I've written them off.
one of two ways. If the season goes uninterrupted, St Kilda, I can't see him going anywhere.
I got Saints.
Yeah.
If the AFL decides to keep fucking around the supplement saga, it's Essendon.
Yep.
See, I think if you take out the 2012 Essendon players, I think they can still beat St Kilda. Yeah, Saints are in trouble.
But
I've got the Saints.
the whole Essendon supplement saga thing and getting in rookie players, it's a Hollywood movie waiting to be made.
The replacements.
The replacements, just, as if you would have a reality TV show. Fuck it, get everyone from the recruit in, get them on there, get them on the field, let them go nuts, fuck it.
You could do it like they did in Formula 1 where you just pay for your spot in the team. Highest bidder, away you go.
That's one way Jeffrey Edison will get back on the ground. They've done something funny, though, with their ringers. They've brought in... Apparently, they've separated them from training, so they don't know the Essendon style of play. So they've really brought them in as ringers, not as an extension of the team.
I would have thought Essendon to be really cautious about separating players off.
Yeah.
Based on past experience, be like, what are you guys doing? Nothing, totally nothing. Absolutely legit.
But Joey Danaher looked good, again, in the NAB challenge, but he looked good last year, too.
Yeah.
Looks like he's got his
Look,
hips.
it looks like he needs to have a good meal or two.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do with a little bit of time in the weights room.
A little bit of
he's a
time
big
at
lad.
a little bit of time at all you can eat buffet. I'd settle for. He's tiny.
But Melbourne have been unlucky. I can't see him getting past double figures.
Yeah, I'm just gone off the Melbourne Kool-Aid.
Yep.
I can't drink anymore. I hear it all the time and I'm like, I want them to be good. And now I'm just going, no, not going to be.
Well, they got picked 2 and 3 from the draft last year.
Yeah.
And I've got a feeling one of them's done an ACL, but I can't remember which one. Not Petraka, the other one. We've been waiting to see Jesse Hogan forever. We keep hearing how good he is.
Yep.
And like Dave Hughes said on the Footy Show, he's the best player to never have played a game.
Yep.
So you can be as cautious as you can ever be with Melbourne.
Yep.
But I reckon they're going to be in that 14 to 12 around there somewhere. But
I think Melbourne's got an upside. Like they've shown flashes of bits where you'd watch the game.
Yep.
Whereas
Yep,
St Kilda, they turn up and you're like, oh
shit.
fuck.
I mean, and they had their good win against Freo, but it wasn't a good game to watch even.
I think they will have a pivotal role in some of the events this season, but I'll get onto that a bit later on.
Yep. And it's Ruzzi's last year at the helmet too.
Yep.
Goodwin takes over next year, so that'll be interesting for
Back
them.
to St Kilda. Can you think of one of their players you want in your side?
Oh, besides Rui.
But even then, would you trade Roughhead for him?
No.
No, of course not. And I can think of probably a half dozen full forwards I'd have ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good centre forward. Did he make All-Australian last year? He was in
I think so. He went close.
Really?
He was in the. He
had a pretty standout
squad.
year.
He had a great year.
He was going a fair few Brownlow votes too.
Yeah, I think he was for a while there.
But they're never going to get close because they still win enough games. But
Yeah.
he still had
two
he had a
votes.
Benjamin Button season, I think. Come back a bit.
Yeah. Oh, he keeps on keeping on. He's a
He's a
champion.
quality player, but how long can you be a quality player in a shit team before you're expected to lift that team?
Well, I mean, they've made a couple of grand finals with him there, but they're definitely in their rebuilding phase, and I think they're quite proud of their rebuilding phase. They've stockpiled draft picks the last 2 years, and I think one more year of stockpiling draft picks for them.
Yeah,
I can't see them going up. They got number 1 Paddy McCartan, who hopefully will get some game time. But yeah, 18th for me. The other one I've picked that could go low is the Bulldogs. They've lost their captain. They've lost Liberatore. Boyd is still going to take another year before he gets ready. Bontempelli had a great first season, but he might have a second season blues. Lost Higgins as well.
Yep.
And they've lost some of their depth players like Jason Tutt.
Yeah.
See, I'm on the opposite. I reckon Bulldogs a surprise. I don't think they'll make finals, but I think they'll get up there.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance. They've got some youngsters coming through that are going to be crackers.
Bontempelli was one you just mentioned. I think he's going to be a brilliant player.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, they love the Bont down there. They were gutted that he didn't get the Rising Star last year.
Yeah.
Rising Star, he'll get a Brownlow before he's done.
Maybe. But yeah, if anybody's going to beat St Kilda to the spoon, I'll put the Bulldogs down. Okay, now to the big awards. Who's going to win the goal kicking?
Goal kicking. It's going to be. See, I was really hard when I was looking at teams on picking who's going to be the. I was thinking it's going to be Cameron or Rewalt, but I reckon Rewalt will play up, so I didn't put him in there. So I'm going with Cameron. However, I've got a darkie for this one as well.
Okay.
I've got Jared Waite as a dark horse. Yep.
I don't know about that. Okay. I've got Walker. I reckon if he plays a full season, he can kick an absolute skinful.
I've picked Tex as well. Yeah. I think Adelaide, they've got a new coach. Last year they should have done a lot better than they did. They won so much of the ball in the middle and just didn't convert for some reason. And this year, if they turn it on and Taylor plays an entire year, it's the second year back from a knee reco, could be a lot of opportunities for him to kick goals, and he was smacking them in from 50 with ease.
And without that, like the delivery from the Adelaide midfield is really good.
It's got to be better, yeah.
So I really think he's got the ability and the delivery to kick it a ton.
Yep.
And you'd probably say 70 goals will win it for you.
Yeah, I think he'll kick 70 easy. Yeah. I think the only thing that can stop him is if Franklin is his second year at the Swans. If he plays like he did last year, and they're used to him now, he could still kick 100 the way he was going. I put Walker down for mine as well for the Coleman.
Swans don't tend to have massive high scores though. They tend to play a more controlled game. At least they used to. They've sort of loosened up a bit now.
A little bit. But I mean, he's the reigning Coleman medalist, and
yeah, true.
I think he can do it again. His marking last year was phenomenal. He hasn't marked that well since 2008 at Hawthorn. And he was their only good player for the grand final, I say. Okay, so the other big award is the Brownlow, and God knows how you pick this after the end of the season, let alone before it. But who you got for Brownlow, Brenton?
Well, I've gone the same route this one. I think Abbott's the obvious choice, but the thing is, I don't want to stick with Abbott, so I've got a darkie again. I've got Dane Zorko.
Zorko, yeah. Yep. Interesting. I was looking at the Brisbane midfield as well.
He's my dark horse because they've got you've got Dane Beams going up there. You've got Daniel Rich, who's just out gun.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really hard to deal with Brisbane's midfield.
Yeah. Who'd he tag?
Exactly right. And I think Beams will have a standout. And the thing is, it's his third year in AFL, but I didn't realise he's turning 26 this year.
Oh, okay.
He's a bit of an experienced player, but
mature age player.
Yeah, but he missed out on the draft in 2007. Just didn't get picked up, and he played up in Queensland for Broadbeach for about 4 or 5 years or something. Picked up 4 straight best and fairest. Captained the under 21s Queensland side, and then he was playing in, I think it's called the Northeast AFL league.
NEFL, yeah.
Yeah, and he picked up the best and fairest there as well, and then got a gig. So he's determined. I think he's at that right age where he's ready. Got 3 seasons under his belt and a lot of confidence going into this season. So there's my darkie.
Well, I think with the Brownlow, you have to say it's a midfielder because it always is.
Yeah.
I've for mine the short odds I put on Nat Fyfe.
Yeah.
Just because even if Freo have a poor season, he's going to stand out.
Yep.
But the one smart money I put on would be Robbie Gray, just because he is going to be a standout in a decent midfield, and I think Port will have a decent season. And he gets noticed too.
He ran 3rd or 4th last year or something. Won the Players Award, the Lee Matthews
by
Trophy.
a fair bit too, I think.
Yeah, I think he got wrapped up in round 21 or something.
And I think when you get noticed in that sort of area, the umpires notice you more too.
Yeah.
And like we found when we were watching games and then putting votes on afterwards, you kind of tend to think, oh, it's always a safe bet to go for player A, which is
you start
thinking, you start midfielder.
That team won, so I've got to pick one from there, and that was this player, and I better even it up because they did have a good first quarter, and it's really hard to. It's too tough a job for umpires to do after, and that's based on me just watching a game and trying to pick the votes.
And then you go, oh shit, I've got to do the votes.
Yeah. And I can see the umpires. They got enough shit to do, enough things to think about during the game, and
I picked Fyfe as well because he's still young, and the tribunal rules have changed so that to accommodate him, among other players. So that'll help him out a little bit. So hopefully he can keep eligible. Selwood, I don't think so. I think he's going to be a bit like Scott West or Sam Mitchell, one of those guys that gets lots of runners up and lots of third places, but never takes the chocolates. So outside of Fyfe, I reckon it could be somebody like Dan Hanbury. I think he's got a lot to make up for. But yeah, it could be interesting. But I mean, Brownlow is just so hard to bloody pick.
All right,
Yeah.
who do you reckon would score the impromptu question? Who do you reckon would score the best out of a non-midfielder?
Probably Franklin. I think he gets noticed the most.
Yeah.
It's you can also say a lot of runners off the half back.
Yeah,
but,
true.
Yeah,
You get some like small running forwards that, but then again, they usually rotate through the midfield anyway, so
yeah,
Yeah, true enough.
it's tough to pick just even out and out positions these days.
yeah. But yeah, so I think with usual suspects there for the Brownlows, and
Yeah.
then it could be somebody like Prittis. It comes out a little bit out of the blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Now for the coaching staff. Do we reckon there's going to be any coaches sacked this year? And if so, how many?
What year was there no coaches sacked?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since there's been that.
A few, yep. I do. I've actually gone a step further and I've picked the round and why.
Okay.
So, all right. We've got Justin Lepich.
Lepich?
Yep.
No
He's a
chance.
corner.
No
He's a
chance.
corner. He's a corner.
No.
I'd say this is how it's going to happen. Brisbane, they're going to be hyped up in the media, got a running midfield, but they're a bit short everywhere else. They're going to go 6-4 up until the round 11 bye.
Yep.
And the media's going to be all up in arms. It's going to be finals. Coaches will be booking hotels for September, October in Melbourne. And then after the bye, they're going to go on a four game losing streak. And the nail in the coffin's going to be round 16 Melbourne at the MCG.
And you reckon, so that'll put them at a 4-game losing streak makes it 6-8. And then you reckon 6-9, they'll sack the coach.
Yep. I think there's been a hype going in, making finals this year. We're all about it.
Right.
And then just a massive disappointment after the bye. Beaten by Melbourne at the MCG. See you later.
He's only just got there, though.
Yeah, well, so did lots of other coaches who got
Yeah,
the fucking
fair
ass after
enough.
doing a good job.
2 years.
And I mean, their board isn't the most stable board. They're known to make rash decisions. And
they got Lee Matthews in there now. So hopefully they're stable now.
this is true, but he got a knife in the back last time, didn't he?
No. He left on his own accord. Because Voss was just named an assistant coach at West Coast, and they said, "Look, you really want Voss to coach here? I've got 1 year left of my contract. Get Vossi now, and I'll
Yeah.
step out." So that's how he stepped out.
Yeah.
But when he was trying to get back on the board, then there was a few boots came out for
Yeah.
him. But interesting. The only one you got only Lepich?
Yeah, I thought that was enough wild
Yep.
speculation for me.
Mine's the one that's probably the most eagerly anticipated by 17 of the 18 teams. When Ed has to call Bucks and say, "Son, don't come Monday." I think that could happen. Probably there'll start to be calls for it after about 6-7 rounds. About 10, 13 rounds, I think there'll be very strong calls for it. And about round 15, 16, there's going to be a phone call made, and poor Bucks will be heading out.
So you're saying Eddie will phone a friend?
No, I think Eddie will go. Bucks, you've got a promotion, mate. You're now executive producer of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Yep, there you go.
That can work.
Hang on, assistant producer. That's the ones that do fuck all, isn't it?
Yep. Executives are the ones that they find other people's money to do it.
Yep.
I reckon there might be two. And I've got Hardwick down.
Yep.
Because Richmond have got something stupid like 8 Friday night games.
Yeah,
and
we
that's
do.
the showcase game. If they don't perform on the biggest stage, it means there'll be the most media about it.
Yep.
And we know how skittish clubs can be when the media starts clamouring.
Bloody oath.
If Richmond are something like 4-10, it's going to be very hard to
Yep.
justify. I mean, was he 4 years in now or 5 years in?
Any more, yeah.
Fair point.
And the other one is my weird, wild speculation one. Rossi Lyon.
What's your line gone?
Like, if Freo don't finish like 6th or above, if they're ninth or if they're 9th, I think he's gone.
Yep.
If they're 8th or 7th, you really got to start looking at it because he almost bet the farm with them again. And
Yeah.
he hasn't turned the list over any. They got a lot of players that are in the right age bracket. If everything goes wrong, you got to start and thinking maybe you're not the bloke for us.
Yeah.
Well, that's been a big criticism of Ross Lyon, is that he almost gets there so often, but you can't be a great coach without a flag.
Yeah,
Well, that's
exactly
it.
right. Yeah.
Can't aim a duck to death. Soon they go pull the trigger and win.
Yep.
But I think there might be a few surprises as well. I mean, the smart way would be you don't sack a coach till you got someone in mind to replace them.
Yep.
But plenty of clubs have done it, or they've had someone in mind, and that someone in mind's gone somewhere else.
Well, actually, I think that's going to go to Ross's disadvantage because they got Peter Sumich as an assistant coach at Freo, and he was highly considered for the Adelaide job, I think.
I think you're
Last year.
right.
He was definitely considered for one of them, yeah.
Yeah. And is a very highly rated assistant coach. So I think they got somebody in the wings who knows the group who's ready to go. It might hurt if things go wrong for them this year.
Who would you have coaching Collingwood then?
Me. No, I'd have Robert Harvey. Again, I like promoting assistants, and I think Robert Harvey's been around for ages.
Yep.
It's just whether he wants to take over the head role or not. Otherwise, you've got look, Brendan Bolton at Hawthorn was pretty close to getting a gig last year. I think he's too nice to sit in the big chair. I think he's would be a great assistant coach. Bomber Thompson's still around.
Yeah, very true.
Interesting to see if he
was he down there as an assistant at some point? Bomber?
He was an Essendon director of coaching or something.
No, I mean down at Collingwood. Was he mixed up with them?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, he was at Geelong for ages, but I don't know if he was at Collingwood before then.
Actually, that's another one that could be interesting too, is Hurd. Like, depending on how the latest iteration of this fucking supplement saga goes, Essendon kind of have had to stick by him for this period. But once that's closed off, and they've got Thompson hanging around the club,
well,
do you say, well, Hurdy, you might be done, mate?
I don't think he's hanging around the club anymore.
No.
But
he's still getting phone calls.
They pretty much fed him his own rope with that one, though, because they told him that Hurdy was out, and so he's going, all right, well, I'll have a job then. I want it, so I'll put my name out there for it.
Actually, we kind of changed our mind.
Yeah, we've changed our minds now, and it's happened to be the awards ceremony, and they got told that day. And
I think you're right there. I mean, when this saga comes to an end, it could be danger for Hurd. But the thing is, I don't know if it's going to end.
Because the thing is,
appeals.
It seems like they've chosen their path, and it's going to take a massive amount of humble pie to all of a sudden turn a dime and go, actually, you know what? Fuck it. Cut our losses.
Yep.
Let's start again.
But that's for both sides too, like your Asada and your Essendon.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's getting bogged down in was it legal, was it not? She was fucked up.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Just don't care anymore.
Yeah, that's it.
But if it, just end it and just go, you know what? You fucked up. We can't really prove it. It's gone on too long. It doesn't matter at this stage.
Exactly.
Half the players are gone.
Yeah. Ones that aren't, let them play. Fucking
let them sort it out in the civil court. You can sue the club, sue the AFL, go for it. But I've had enough.
And it's not like they were 22-0 when they were cheating.
Yeah.
So.
Any other sacked coaches you got there? I mean, I think Malthouse is safe because they've publicly declared they're rebuilding.
Yep.
And I don't think they can afford to sack him.
Plus, Carlton, they don't really have a lot of upside at the moment.
They're
going okay. They're not. I wouldn't see them making finals, but they're not expected to either.
No, I don't think anybody expects them to make finals.
That's when coaches do tend to get sacked, is when they don't meet up to expectations. At the moment, there's not really many expectations on Carlton.
But a lot of the teams at the other end of the ladder are new coaches that have only just signed or signed on, and so they're all safe for now, for this year at least. I think it's going to be a pretty tame year when it comes to coaching after the carnage of last year.
Or at least until October.
At least until October.
I think a lot of the teams who are maybe in that area where they might have performance that could warrant a coach's sacking, I think there might be other factors that they're going to attack first than the coaches.
Yeah, definitely looking at the cattle first. So back to one of the teams, because I've ordered these questions really constructively. Mm-hmm. Who's finishing ninth?
The Richmond Cup.
The Richmond Cup.
Yep, I've got Brisbane filling in that slot.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got Brisbane as well.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be
make that 3 Brisbane.
Pretty damn good, but not quite good enough to get into final 8.
I'm very bullish on Brisbane because that midfield's just too good.
Yeah, that midfield's really good.
Stephen Martin's looking really good.
Yeah,
as a ruck move forward.
They got Christensen.
Yeah, Alan Christensen as well has gone up there.
I just think they're a season away from making finals. I think they need a bit more seasoning and just one more player who can, either hold down the back line in a strong fashion or create options up forward.
I originally had them finishing 8th, and I moved it to 9th today because I promoted somebody else up above them. But yeah, they've got everything right now.
Yeah.
It looks like, and I think they're ready to catapult.
That's why I think at the minimum they'll go ahead of that little middle group that they're currently in that's vying for probably, let's say, 14th or 12th up to 8th.
Yeah.
I think they'll just jump to the top of that queue.
And, midfields where it's won and lost, and they've got a lot of class, a lot of elite midfielders, and even guys like Aish who are coming through.
Yeah.
And Paparone, who's a forward midfielder.
I think Aish has been undersold a lot outside of South Australia. just because his name is so recognised from the SANFL, from his old man. But he is damn classy, and I think we're going to see a lot from him.
Like I've said it before, I was really impressed with him in round 1 against Hawks. He had a couple of other good games throughout the year as well. I think he's going to be good in a couple of years. Okay, so the big improver, let's say player-wise, somebody who's going to go from a good player to a great player or above. Who we got?
Well, I've got Dane Zorko.
You picked him.
Reasons.
I think he's almost already elite, but now if he does get that medal that you reckon he will.
I think he'll come up as sort of a leader in that group. But I just think I like that method of entering into the AFL, of not necessarily getting a player when they're young and trying to mould them into the footballer that you want them to be, but letting them sort of discover what sort of footballer they are and they want to be, and just getting that little bit of maturity underneath their belt and then coming into the AFL. I really like that path, and I think it develops really good players too.
You got Josh?
I got Bontempelli. I think with Liberatore out, there's going to be a lot more on his shoulders, and I think he's going to stand up to it.
That's actually a good call. Yeah,
his second year, and he had a great first year, so be interesting how he goes. Especially, the inclusion of Boyd, I reckon, is going to help or hinder him more, because he loves to kick a goal and run down forward. But it will be interesting if
it's uncommon at Western Bulldogs.
But I think with Liberatore injured, he's going to have to step up, and if he can handle the responsibility well, and Western Bulldogs progress a little bit further, it's going to be all due to him.
And they absolutely love him down there, the Bont. So he'll be a crowd favourite for sure. I've picked 2 because I couldn't split. I reckon with Dane Beams leaving Collingwood, there's a key spot in the midfield open, and I reckon Marley Williams could be the man to take it. Swan and Pendlebury are, another year older, as you say.
Yep.
And Marley Williams, you won't have the legal off-field issues leading into the season like he did last year. So I reckon he's just got the right, he's at the right age group and the right style of play to really, push and become the premier ball mover for Collingwood.
Yep.
And the other one I got is Robbie Tarrant. It's just again going off NAB challenge. He looks like he's finally found that he's going to be a backman.
Yep.
He's not floating. We'll put you up forward, we'll put you up back. Well, they've got Jared Waite now, who's going to take that second key forward role next to Petrie.
Yep.
So he's not going to challenge for that. If he's more settled in his place, he can start to actually work on that. And I think that, especially with some of the injury issues that North have in their back lines, fullback's taken. That's Scotty Thompson. Nobody's going to take that off him. No. I think that he can be that second key backman for them. And if he doesn't this year, then you've got to really question his place on the list.
Well, the problem with Thompson has always been his size. He's a very, very smart fullback, but he's not big enough to play on. He's not big enough to play on guys like Franklin.
Yeah,
Franklin's given him a touch up a couple of times. Thompson's got a few back as well, but they've generally had to have a second person coming in to spoil.
Yep.
And against Sydney this year, where you've got Tippett and Franklin, you need a big
somebody
bloke.
else. Yeah, and Robbie can jump.
Yeah. And as long as he stays whole, he should have a pretty decent season back there.
I reckon he'll be all right. The big improver team, I think we've just about all named Brisbane, haven't we? Because we picked them to finish 9th.
Yeah, although I think Gold Coast will... I don't know if they'll be a big improvement, but they'll be a consistent improvement.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we've already spoken about Brisbane, so we'll move on from that one. Who is gone missing? So who's the good player or great player that's now going to be questioning their place on the list?
I've got Dangerfield, because I reckon with him coming out into free agency, there's going to be a lot of questions. The coach is going to be like, well, are you, aren't you? I reckon he's gone, and I reckon that's going to be on his mind for most of the season.
So you reckon he's gone as a player out of Adelaide?
He's gone from Adelaide.
You reckon he's leaving Adelaide?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And for most of the season, I reckon that's going to be on his mind. It's going to be distracting, and it's going to take his game down a step. It's already at a massive level. He's one of the key midfielders of the
He polled unbelievably well in the Brownlow last year in an injury interrupted season. He looked like he's hurt every bloody game he played.
And I think if he is gone, that could be the factor in regards to the coach feeling out different opportunities for different players who are going to fill that role that he's there, and they might just put him on the side a bit, maybe put him in as a sub. So that depends on who you're playing as well, because they're not going to sacrifice wins just to give someone a bit of experience. But
well, wherever he goes, they'll be glad to pick him up. I think he's a
yeah.
quality.
It'll be the biggest free agent.
I think this is just an exceptional situation where he hasn't come out and declared he's in, which pretty much means he's out.
It is rare that they stay. I mean, there has been a few, but not many. There's been more that have left.
I think it's going to be a Franklin-like situation.
Yep.
There's going to be too much money on offer for him not to take it, and the difference between the two situations is Franklin being a forward, there's a lot less immediate impact as a forward. You're depending on the ball travelling to you a little bit, whereas in the midfield, it's your responsibility to get the ball and travel. And I think there's going to be not quite as much harmony in that midfield because of that uncertainty, and because the players, they're not dumb. They know that if he hasn't come out and said, I'm staying, then he's probably going to be leaving. So there's going to be some, tension there. And I think that'll result in his game going down.
All right. Interesting.
I've gone another darkie in this one. I'm a big fan of the dark horses.
Love the dark horse, yeah.
Hated Sub-Zero. Fucking grey. I've gone Pritis.
Yeah, okay.
I think Pritis is going missing.
That.
And not so much because I think he's going to have a bad year, but I think just a deteriorating team around him will just dry up a lot of possibilities and make him a lot easier to match up against.
He's been one of those players that have sort of flown under the radar for years.
Yeah.
And been a constant contributor. Now he's got the Brownlow medal, not under the radar anymore.
Yeah. And definitely got the talent, but I think just circumstances will make him have to work a bit harder and probably not get results as easily as he did last year.
Yeah.
Still a good player, though. Still talent.
I consider Pritis. I got to admit, I picked a bit of an easy one here, I think. I said Adam Goods. I think he's gone on 1 year too long.
Yeah.
And I don't see him as part of Sydney's best 22 anymore.
Yep.
Although he had an okay grand final in a game where only 2 or 3 of the Sydney players can stand up and say they tried.
He's been an ambassador for that team for so long. It's hard to say, Adam, we're done with you, mate.
You've got to let him make the call.
Yeah. I think he's done enough for that club that he's earned that right.
I still think he should have made the call last year, though.
Yeah, me too.
How many games has he got?
350,
fucking plenty.
350 odd.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's got his eye on 400, but I think it'll be a bridge too far for him.
Yeah.
But actually, bridging across to that, Fletcher and Harvey. For so long, 400 games seemed like it was in Narnia that anyone would ever make it, and now you're going to get 2 in one season.
Yeah.
And I can't see either of those guys getting told to step down.
Well, no, Fletcher.
I think he's been carried through. He's been nursed through. I think that's probably a better word for it.
I think he might.
But Harvey,
but what are you going to do without him? I mean, Essendon and Art, they're not making finals, and with the whole crap that's gone on in the background,
exactly,
you need something to toast. So,
and that's it. Yeah,
his 400th will be that.
It will definitely be a PR and club win.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
A merchandising win too.
But just think of all the old players that are coming back for the celebration, and sure they have function after function, and be one massive circle jerk down there. And
400's only been done twice before in the history of the game, so it's worth celebrating.
Of course, absolutely.
It's just a weird thing we end up with 2 in the same season.
So like I said, I don't care if he breaks both his legs. You still wheel him out for that 400th game.
Yeah.
Nobody retires on 390.
Yeah.
390 plus.
Whatever else. Unless you're Mark Taylor.
334?
334, yeah, that's what it was too.
But I can see Harvey going on next season based on his
absolutely.
season.
He's been he's the true Benjamin Button of the AFL, which is
it was
going backwards in age.
Probably one of his best years.
Going forwards in talent.
Out of the last 5 or 6.
And I think with the sub rule now, it suits his style as well. Like, he could be, for next season, the season after even, a super sub that just comes on after half time, 3/4 time, whatever, and kicks his quick 2 or 3 and job done.
There's a conversation that you'd love to be on a fly on the wall for. Scott talking to Harvey to tell him you're the sub.
Yeah.
There's an angry word spoken there both ways.
But I'll tell you what, though, if they're like, but I can play the forward pocket, yeah? Yeah, you'll probably kick a couple.
But that,
all right, yeah.
That role as the senior player on the with a sub vest, Gian Syracuse for Bulldogs played it to perfection last year.
Yeah, he did,
and was he knew that was his role,
and he loved it.
He loved it.
Yeah. But he looked like he was 57.
Yeah. A lot of salt and pepper going on.
Yeah. But he did some, real crafty things. Gave Richmond a touching up at the end and
won the game.
Got the win over them.
Won the game with experience that time.
Yep.
Funny thing is, speaking of crafty things, Harvey's well known for his sneakiness.
Yeah.
Pretty much resulted in the whole interchange gate rule, when he came off from the back of the bench, and then the Swans player followed him and had 19 on the field.
To be fair, he comes from an era of North Melbourne where sneakiness was at a premium.
He's a sneaky little bugger. So I can imagine him
hanging around toilet stalls.
Imagine him running on, going to the CUB logo, rubbing his hands up on the red, putting the red all over his jacket, and be like walking along the boundary as if he's still got the red vest on, all of a sudden running on, kicking a quick snap.
I thought you were going to say he's going to pretend he's a Bulldogs player or something.
Actually, I wouldn't put it past him. He could be that sneaky.
Right.
I'm open, yes.
If he hasn't called for a ball from the opposition, I'm not sitting here.
I'm saying he does it every game.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. I reckon everyone actually already knows Boomer's voice. It's just from hearing it so often.
They don't even look. Shut up.
Yeah. It's not him calling for it. It's usually him just giving you shit.
I'll tell you what, though, if you're the opposition, you'd sledge back and be like, boom, you dropped $2. What? Where?
I thought it was nice of Crowley to sit out this year for him. So,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have to pinch him. Okay, then the last question we've got, who's going to be the big slider of a team?
Yeah, I've got Collingwood.
Where they finished last year?
They finished 10th or 11th.
Something like that, 12th, somewhere around there. And you reckon even lower?
Yeah, I reckon they're going to drop down to around 14. There's too many in the basement for them to drop much further. I mean, Essendon and St Kilda are filling the bottom two spots. I don't think you're going to find a bookie that'll take a bet of otherwise.
Nope.
But I think Collingwood's going to slide down to around 14.
Yeah, they had the worst injury list come round 23 I've ever seen last year. So it'd be interesting to see how they bounce back from that. And obviously, losing Dane Beams is a massive...
Well, it hasn't started out too well with Greenwood injured.
Greenwood, yeah.
And I think he's a quality player. But 10 weeks out, it's going to be probably 3.5 to 4 months before he's back to a quality standard.
To AFL fitness and form level.
Yeah, and this is a bloke who didn't think he was part of North's plan going forward. So if he's out for half the season, he's got to be feeling the pressure to perform, and how's he going to respond?
There's an obvious hole in the midfield left by Beams. So, there was a place there, but if you're missing the first half of the year, somebody else can jump up and own it.
And if a bloke like Marley does you get back in the side, and if he doesn't, same shit happened to the same bloke twice.
So you were checking the ladder from last year.
I was. Well, who was that? Sorry,
who Collingwood finish?
Collingwood finished 11th.
Okay, so around that mark.
For me, I didn't anticipate huge movements like a massive slide or anything, but tell you what, you struggle to find someone go more cold on a team than me today, because I reckon Freo might be the ones that slide down. I've had them top 4 at the start of the show, and now I'm writing them off. No finals for Freo.
Within half an hour, they've gone
half an hour and gone cold on them. That's a darkie.
It could be that they don't improve, they don't get any worse, and that's enough to make them slide.
And the other one I had was probably West Coast, and even that was maybe a drop of 3 or 4 places. 5 places.
See, West Coast is such a funny side because they've got talent, but God, some of them just seem a bit downhill skiers at times. A little bit happy with their skills, and I don't know if the hard work's there. And they've lost. Their captain retired in Glass last year, and then their best and fairest has done his knee, Mackenzie, so he's out for the year.
Still getting over the loss of Spanger.
Still getting over the loss of Spanger.
Everyone could use Jesus.
Look, I put the Tigers down as mine. Finishing 8th. I can only see 2 teams from last year's 8 missing out, and that being the Tigers and Essendon. Yeah,
and there are a lot of teams that are primed to make a crack at finals as well, which makes it really hard to shuffle it around, and it's obviously the musical chairs game, really.
It's a good thing. We say, everyone says it every year, there's 14 teams that are going to make the 8 this year. So,
well, that's been the exciting battles in the last couple of seasons, is the last few rounds and fighting over that 10th to 7th spot.
Yeah. Which, last year it proved a great story with the Tigers marching in.
Yep.
And then getting pissed out. But
I did love Mick Martin's... his reporting of that whole period was brilliant. He was at the game, he's pumped up.
Mick Martin knows how to write.
No, not shit. Not Mick Martin, fucking Triple M.
Mick Malloy?
Mick Malloy, yeah, Mick Martin actually probably wasn't so excited. And no, I don't imagine him on radio either.
No, it was on Channel 7 before the Channel 7 game day or whatever it's called.
Richard.
where he was watching the Swans game.
And speaking of Channel 7, for fuck's sake, this season, we want at least one camera angle from behind the plate so we can see down the field.
Yeah.
Don't have to do it the whole way, just so when someone's got a mark, give us a look at what's going on downfield from behind the player that's kicking the ball.
And fuck off the spider cam.
Yeah, that's it. I can eat a dick.
Okay, so I think that's what we reckon is going to happen in 2015.
Yep.
We'll revisit this at the end of the year and see who was right.
2015, year of the dark horse. That's what it is.
Why is that not a team? You know,
The dark horses?
Dark horses.
Yeah. Adam Goods wouldn't play for them. All right, Lewis.
On that note,
Cheers.
Like, yo.